who has the best punching power in the UFC and the worst punching power in the UFC. Obviously, you have guys who can one punch KO you, and then you have guys who can land 800 strikes and not even land a knockdown. So I wanted to create a tier list today talking about the best and the worst power in the UFC. Let me just clarify at the beginning that some fighters are going to be in the same tier, but within the tier, they're going to be higher than the other fighters. So if you have two fighters in the same tier, it doesn't mean their power is on the exact same level. Obviously, with only 5 tiers, there's only so much you can do. But let's get right into it, starting off with Dricus du Plessis. I'm going to put him in good pop. You know, Dricus is not one-punch KO in anybody. He's dropped Whitaker. He's dropped Adesanya, I believe, into a submission. He's dropped a few guys, but you're not going to see Dricus du Plessis one-punch KO in anybody. So I think a good pop for Dricus is fair. Let's move on to the next one. We got Charles Oliveira, also in good pop. Listen, I love Charles, but let's not pretend like he's KO'd anybody out stiff. Even Benil Dariush, he cracked him, right? But it took him a long time of punches to get him to the ground. Sure, he sent Justin Gaethje flying across the octagon, but Charles Oliveira, I can't remember a time where he KO'd anybody out cold, so I have to put him in good pop. Nothing crazy to where like you're going to get KO'd, but he definitely can knock you down and put you in a dangerous submission. Either way, let's move on to the next one. We got Sean Strickland. I'm putting Sean Strickland in the weenie tier. Listen, Sean Strickland doesn't have power to any degree. Sure, he has one knockdown against Adesanya. Outside of that, what has Sean Strickland done? He throws little pitter-pat jabs and teeps the entire fight. Could he have KO power that we have no idea of because he never puts anything to his punches? Sure, but from what we've seen, Sean Strickland 100% has what I would call weenie punches. So, yeah, he's definitely going to be going in the weenie punch tier. Sorry, Sean Strickland. Let's move on to the next one on this list. We got Cyril Gane. I'm going to throw Cyril Gane in the meh power, especially for a heavyweight. I mean, this guy had to land like a 200-punch combination on Tai Tuivasa to drop him. So it's like, how much credit can we really give Cyril Gane for having any power? Not much. So I'm going to put him in the meh power tier. I don't think he's ever one-punch KO'd anybody in the UFC. He's always been a volume guy at heavyweight. So he's a good striker, but meh power. Let's move on to another one on this list. We got Colby Covington going to go into the weenie punches tier. Now, you guys know that Colby Covington is a volume guy as well. He's not KOing anybody. When's the last time Colby Covington got a knockdown with his striking? I can't even tell you ever. He's one of the least powerful punches in welterweight history. Just no pop, no sting on his shots. Whenever you're on the feet with Colby Covington, you're 100% safe. You can just walk around. I'm pretty sure I can last a round on the feet with Colby if he doesn't take me down. That's how non-powerful his punches are. So he's going in the weenie punches tier. Let's move on to another fighter on this list. We got Sugar Sean O'Malley. I'm going to put him in the KO power tier. The KO power tier are guys that can put you out in one shot, but they don't always. So I got to put Sugar Sean O'Malley in the KO power tier. He's one-punch KO'd some guys like a Eddie Wineland, like a Julian Paiva maybe, like a Aljamain Sterling. It wasn't a one-punch KO, but he got him hurt. I don't know. Sean O'Malley has KO power, but not every fight is he KOing guys. Like he's blistered guys for an entire fight without finishing the fight. So KO power for Sean O'Malley, but not God tier power. Let's move on to the next one. We got Dustin Poirier. I'm also going to put in the KO power tier. Probably a little less power punch for punch than Sean O'Malley. Maybe not. If Dustin Poirier lands clean, you're definitely going to go down. Proven against a guy like Bobby Green way back in the day before Bobby Green's chin was shot. He KO'd him. He knocked out Justin Gaethje back in the day. Who else? Dustin Poirier has some KO wins. He should have KO'd Dan Hooker. Don't know what was in Dan Hooker's chin in that one fight. But, oh yeah, recently he KO'd Benoit Saint Denis, which was very impressive considering Benoit was like on top of the world and being touted by everybody as the next big thing. So Dustin Poirier, with the right shots, definitely can KO you. Not God tier power, but he has KO power. Let's move on to the next one. We have Tom Aspinall going in God tier power. There's a reason this guy has the shortest average UFC fight time in UFC history. Bro's fight time average is 2 minutes and 2 seconds because he literally KOs everybody in the first minute. He KO'd Blades in a minute. He KO'd Pavlovich in a minute. He KO'd Marcin Tybura in a minute. Like, this guy's knocking out everybody. And when he's not knocking you out, he's subbing you. So, got to have Tom Aspinall in that God power tier. It's really a thing of beauty to see this guy land a strike on somebody. You just see him go down and boom, they're done for. Either way, Let's move on to another one. We got Kamaru Usman. I'm going to put in good pop. Listen, I know he KO'd, who was it? He KO'd Masvidal, but outside of that, Moraes way back in the day and Gilbert Burns, which wasn't a KO. It was kind of just him landing ground and pound until Gilbert Burns went out. But yeah, you could put Kamaru Usman in KO power because he has a KO, but I don't know, man. I don't rate his power too crazy. He really was a decision merchant most of his career and then started getting knockouts during his title reign or a knockout against Jorge Masvidal. He TKO'd Covington, but nowhere in that fight did he KO Covington. He's dropped Covington. So I got to say Kamaru Usman in the good pop tier, in my opinion. Let's move on to the next one. We got Arman Tsarukyan. I'm going to put in meh power. Listen, he just one-punch KO'd, who is it? Beneil Dariush. But Beneil Dariush didn't take enough time off. He was coming off that KO loss against Charles Oliveira. And Beneil Dariush has never had the best chin, so I don't really rate Arman's power just because of that one KO. Outside of this fight, he hasn't really done anything in terms of KO power. I can't put him in weenie punches just because he has a one-punch KO or close to it in Beneil Dariush. So, meh power for Arman Tsarukyan. Let's move on to the next one. We got Max Holloway. I'm going to put in the meh power as well. You know what? Maybe I'll put Max Holloway in good pop. Just because recently he's been sitting down on his punches more. He KO'd Korean Zombie with one punch. He KO'd Justin Gaethje with one punch. So Max Holloway has shown that if he sits down on his punches, he can have like KO power. But I can't put him in KO or God tier, obviously. I got to put him in good pop because Max Holloway, for the most part, is a volume puncher. He landed like 600-700 strikes on Calvin Kattar and didn't get a single knockdown. So that has to be said. Max Holloway, I'd say, has good pop later in his career. Beginning of his career, I probably would have put him in meh power. Either way, let's move on to another guy with God tier power. Carlos Prates. This guy's the rookie of the year, in my opinion. Coming to the UFC, 4 knockouts, four fights, 4 KOs. I mean, the way this guy KO'd Neil Magny, I know it's Neil Magny, but it was crazy impressive how he literally like glazed the side of Neil Magny's head. Didn't even land clean, and Neil Magny went out cold. And Neil Magny hasn't been KO'd out cold too many times in the UFC. What was the only other time? Against Ponzinibbio? Outside of that, typically people have to like TKO Neil Magny. So for Prates to put him out cold was impressive, not even with a clean shot. So I got my boy Carlos Prates with God tier power because he's knocking out everybody. If this guy doesn't get taken down, he's going to be a danger in the welterweight division. Either way, let's move on to another fighter with weenie punches. John Jones with weenie punches. I don't think John Jones has a single knockdown with his fist in like any of his UFC fights ever. People point out to the Lyoto fight. I thought that was an elbow, but maybe he landed a punch on Lyoto that dropped him. Outside of that, though, John Jones, I don't think doesn't have a single knockdown in his entire UFC career with punches. He has knockdowns with kicks, spinning kicks, a head kick to DC. Yeah, he has like good technique, but in terms of power, John Jones himself has admitted he has got no power. So I got to put John Jones in the weenie punches tier. Anything higher would be a disgrace because he doesn't have KO power. Let's move on to the next one on this list. We're going to have Shara Bullet, who I'm going to put in the meh power tier. Listen, Shara's got some finishes in the UFC, but let's be real. This guy is styling on people on the feet because he has amazing striking, but his power is not too impressive. Sure, he landed a double spinning back fist on Armin Petrosian and KO'd him, but that's a different kind of strike. You know, in terms of just regular fighting ability and like KO power, he's not too impressive. I'd say he has meh power. He takes a lot of guys who would have been KO'd by other fighters to the third round, to a decision that he should have KO'd earlier if he had power. So I'd say he's in the meh power tier. Let's move on to another fighter on this list. We're going to have Shavkat Rakhmonov, who I'm going to have in good pop. Listen, anytime shown in the Ian Gary fight, anytime you're on the feet with Shavkat, you're always in danger of getting rocked, but never KO'd, I'd say. He's not going to one-punch KO you, but his punches are dangerous, and they can be very lethal. So I think Shavkat Rakhmonov in the good pop tier is fair, just because that's the reason he was winning the striking exchanges against Ian Gary, in my opinion, just because his punches had a little more steam on him, or a decent amount more steam on him than Ian Gary, so he was doing more damage in the striking until it went to the grappling when he was surprisingly outworked in certain moments. Let's move on to the next one. I'm going to put Petr Yan in meh power. Petr Yan has meh power, in my opinion. Did he drop O'Malley? I'm a casual. I forget if he dropped O'Malley. I think he got dropped by O'Malley at one point, maybe. I know he knocked down Corey Sandhagen with a spinning back fist, but Petr Yan throughout his UFC career, he's not known as a guy that like has crazy power. If he does beat you by like a KO or TKO, it's because he wear it on you. I know he KO'd Uriah Faber back in the day, but that was with a kick. And he got eventually TKO'd Jose Aldo in the 5th round, but that was just overwhelming him with punches while on his back. Petr Yan, never known to have crazy power, so I got to put him in the meh power tier. Let's move on to the next fighter on this list. We got Ilia Topuria. I'm putting in the god tier power. Say what you want about the only reason he has power is because he's accurate. That's crazy. He has natural one-punch KO ability, so I have to put Ilia Topuria in the god tier power. I mean, this guy's the first guy to KO Max Holloway, and we all knew that Max Holloway probably was eventually going to get KO'd, but the fact that Ilia was the first man to do it after how Max looked against Justin Gaethje was just crazy. He knocked out Volk, also not crazy impressive considering that Volk, was coming off that KO against Makhachev. He one-punch KO'd Damon Jackson, Jai Herbert, so Ilia has a bunch of one-punch KOs in the UFC, so you got to put him in the god power tier. He's knocking out everybody. He's never trying to fight to a decision, so respect to Ilia Topuria. Let's move on to another fighter with some weenie punches. We got Aljamain Sterling. I don't think Aljamain Sterling has a single knockdown in the UFC, like throughout his entire UFC career. And he's been in the UFC since, 2014? For like 10 years now. And yeah, man, Aljamain Sterling, you would think by looking at him, being how jacked he is and how shredded he is at the lower weight classes, if this guy hit you, you would go down. But no, he has like funky striking, as his nickname Funkmaster would suggest. But Aljo, in my opinion, never too impressive with his power. If he lands on you, you're perfectly safe. So if you can keep the fight standing with Aljo, you're pretty much free to just tag him up on the feet if you have better striking, and you don't have to really worry about anything. So Aljamain Sterling absolutely has weenie punches. Let's move on to another fighter on this list. Poatan, I'm putting in the top of KO power. I don't think he has god tier power, Poatan. I think he has KO power because Alex Pereira typically has to land some lead up shots. He never just typically doesn't one punch KO guys. I mean, I don't know, man. This is a tough one with Alex Pereira because people are going to say, dude, Poatan not in god tier power. No, I don't think he's in god tier power because he, example, look at the Khalil Roundtree fight. Took him to the 4th round before he went into the Matrix and had to land a bunch of strikes to KO him. Look at the Adesanya fight. Didn't KO Adesanya. Sure, he KO'd Strickland, but I can't put him in god tier power just because he took some guys to the later rounds where they took some of his best shots and was able to stay standing. So Alex Pereira in the top of KO power, I think, is a fair move. Let's move on to another fighter that I would say has weenie punches, Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson has some of the weeniest punches in the UFC. He has some good solid boxing, but if you're on the feet with this guy, you can literally just be emoting like you're playing Fortnite, and if he lands a punch flush on your chin, you're going to be just fine, man. I'm pretty sure if you put me and Jack Hermansson in a boxing fight, I would last a round because this guy's throwing absolute pillows at you. So Jack Hermansson 100% has to go in the weenie tier. I don't think you can put him any higher. He is coming off that win over Joe Pyfer, the saltiest man in the UFC, and he just put a boxing clinic on him. But Joe Pyfer was never in danger, or any of his opponents are never in danger when they're on the feet. Let's be real. Jack Hermansson in the weenie punches tier. Let's move on to another fighter on this list. We got Diego Lopez. I'm going to put Diego Lopez, and this is my favorite fighter, guys. And I'm going to critique him and say he's in good pop. Listen, I know he knocked down Brian Ortega, and I know he knocked down Sadiq Youssef, but let's not pretend like Diego Lopez is putting guys out cold. He's knocking them down, and then he's maybe TKOing them on the ground, or he's knocking Brian Ortega down, and then Brian Ortega is getting back up eventually. So I don't think Diego Lopez has KO power, so to speak. He has enough good pop. I'm going to put him in the top of good pop. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put Diego Lopez in the top of good pop. Same thing with Charles Oliveira and Usman. I'm going to put these guys all at the top of good pop. They all have good pop. And yeah, you maybe could slide Usman or Lopez into KO power, but I just don't see one punch KO potential from Lopez. He knocks guys down and he's dangerous. And yeah, he can get a TKO on the ground, but you're typically not going to see this guy land one punch when you're going out. So good pop. I don't think he's KO'd anybody in the UFC. He's got some TKOs over Sadiq Youssef and nearly against Brian Ortega, but I don't think he's KO'd anybody. Maybe I'm a casual. He is my favorite fighter. So Diego Lopez in good pop, I think is fair. Let's move on to another fighter in the weenie punches tier. We got Corey Sandhagen. Does Corey Sandhagen have a single knockdown in his entire UFC career? I'm not trying to be an ass, guys. Corey Sandhagen doesn't really have great power. He seems to be throwing pillows at you. Maybe you put him at the top of Weenie's punches tier because maybe he has a little bit more pop than these other guys like Covington or Aljo. But I still think that in terms of technical ability, Corey Sandhagen's one of the best strikers at bantamweight, but in terms of pop, man, or knockout power, he ain't got much. I don't think he has like what does he have, a KO over who was it, Marlon Moraes back in the day, was after a spinning wheel kick and then he finished him on the ground with TKO. That I wouldn't necessarily, he has a flying knee over Frankie Edgar, but in terms of punching power, Corey Sandhagen's not throwing much your way, man. If he's landing just punches on you, you're going to be just fine. You might have a few bumps and bruises, but nothing that you're going to have to worry about long term. Let's move on to the next guy on this list, Jamal Salty Man Hill. I'm going to put in KO power. He definitely has KO power. Maybe a little overrated at times. He KO'd Johnny Walker with one punch, but at this point, is that really an accomplishment? He KO'd Thiago Santos. I think he KO'd Jimmy Crute back in the day. Pretty brutal KO. So Jamal Hill has shown to have good KO power, but then he has fights against like a 42-year-old Glover where Glover's eating some head kicks and punches, and he's not even getting barely any knockdowns or any significant closings to ending the fight. So I have to put Jamal Hill at the bottom of KO power. He has KO power, but not like crazy KO power like people think he does. Maybe he'll KO Yeri and he'll be able to move up to the top of KO power, but for now I have him on the bottom of KO power. Let's move on to another guy on this list, Robert Whittaker. I'd say he recently leveled up on the power tier list because I would put originally Robert Whittaker in the weenie punches tier just because if Robert Whittaker is throwing punches at you, typically, like if without his blitz head kick, if he's just throwing punches, you're typically not going to have to worry. But man, in that Ikram Aliskerov fight, he hit Ikram with a beautiful uppercut that put him out cold, knocked him out. That was very impressive by Whittaker. That was his first KO in a long time. I think before that it was a KO against Derek Brunson back in like maybe 2016, a long time ago. And he has a head kick to fit TKO finish on the ground against Jacare. So Whittaker can get finishes, but typically his punching power is very mid. It took him a long time to get a KO before that Ikram Aliskerov fight. So he has decent pop here and there, but not enough to be in the good pop tier. I got to put him in meh power. Let's move on to the next one on this list. We got Islam. I'll put Islam in good pop. Islam has some good pop. If he connects clean, he has a chance of knocking you down. Shown in the Charles Oliveira fight, shown in the Dustin fight, he can definitely clip you. What other fights did he clip guys? I think he I'm drawing a blank. I think he knocked down Volkanovski in one of their fights. He KO'd him in the rematch. He TKO'd Bobby Green on the ground. So Islam, I think he has good pop. Nothing crazy. Definitely not going to say he has KO power because you're not going to really typically see Islam KOing anybody, but he'll knock you down and get you into a submission or take you down and TKO you on the ground with some good ground and pound. So I'm going to put Islam in the good pop tier. Let's move on to the next one. We got Sergey Pavlovich. I'm going to put at the top of KO power. Now, this might be controversial. A lot of people would put Sergey Pavlovich in the God tier power, but I'm not going to do that. Even with his 6 first-round KOs in a row, whenever he was on that streak, I still think that punch for punch, this guy doesn't have like one punch KO power like a Aspinall, like a Carlos Prates, like a Ilia Topuria. Like he typically has to catch you on the end of his punches and then land a bunch of shots to TKO you on the ground. So yeah, punch for punch, he has really great power, but I don't think it's God tier power. So I'm going to put, the reason he was getting a bunch of KOs is because he was landing consistently clean on guys' chins, and then they would go down and he'd TKO them on the ground. It wasn't like he hit them one time and they went out cold, you know? So I got Sergey Pavlovich at the top of the KO power tier, and I think that's a fair place to put him. He's definitely at the top. He's got the most KO power of anybody at KO power tier. Let's move on to another fighter on this list with God tier power. Josh Emmett, listen, big meaty hooks. If he connects with a big meaty hook on your chin, you're going to sleep. The KO he got against Bryce Mitchell was one of the most brutal KOs I've ever seen. Back in the day, I think he KO'd Michael Johnson with one punch. He KO'd Ricardo Lamas with one punch, if I believe. So Josh Emmett, he doesn't have the greatest technique on the feet, but man, if he did, he'd be one of the most scary strikers in UFC history. This guy has insane power. He sent Bryce Mitchell into convulsions. So just off of that, I got to have him in the God tier power. If you do not want to get hit clean by Josh Emmett, you will be going to sleep. Just ask Michael Johnson. Let's move on to the next one on this list. We got Ian Gary. I'm going to put in the weenie punches. Do I put him in weenie punches or med power? Ian Gary. Does he have any knockouts? He has a KO over Song Kanat. Nah, dude. Screw that. Ian Gary couldn't do anything to Neil Magny on the feet outside of leg kicks, so I'm leaving Ian Gary in weenie punches. He looks like a weenie. He punches like a weenie. So there's no way I'm putting him above weenie punches. And if you disagree with that, I'm sorry. Just because he out-grappled Shavkat doesn't increase his punching power. He has no pop. I can last a round against this guy. Probably not because he has the technique to finish me just by wearing on me. But Ian Gary absolutely has weenie punches. I'll put him above, I'll put him on the level of like Colby Covington, right above John Jones. Ian Gary at 100% has weenie punches. And if you're fighting him on the feet, I wouldn't say you're safe because his technique is so good, but you're not going to have to worry about getting one punch KO'd. You know what I'm saying? Either way, let's move on to another fighter on this list, Volkanovski. I'm going to say Volkanovski has meh power. He's shown to be able to get knockdowns against a guy. I think he knocked down Islam half-heartedly in their first fight. I think he knocked down, who else did he knock down? He knocked down Yair Rodriguez, and yeah, but Volkanovski's never really had the most impressive power. I think he wobbled the Korean, or he was piecing up the Korean Zombie so bad on the feet they had to keep it. They had to end the fight on the feet. Herb Dean had to stop it because it was just brutalizing the Korean Zombie. But if you look at all three of his Max Holloway fights, 0 knockdowns. I know it's Max Holloway, but still, didn't knock down Topuria. Didn't knock down. Maybe he knocked down Ortega. Either way, I don't think Volk's never really been known for the most pop. So I'm gonna put him in meh power. Typically, if you're fighting on the feet against Volk, you're going to have to be worried more about his technique more than him one-punch KOing you. So, yeah, Volkanovski in the meh power tier. I'll put him like right above Petr Yan. Let's move on to the next one on this list. We got Michael Chandler. Good. I'm going to put Michael Chandler in KO power, the bottom of KO power. That's where I'm going to put Michael Chandler. Listen, punch for punch, I don't know, man. I think Michael Chandler has a little bit overrated power. Sure, he dropped Charles Oliveira in their first fight. And did he drop Poirier? I'm not sure if he dropped Poirier. I'm going to put Poirier right under Jamal Hill and right above Michael Chandler. Controversial, but Poirier has power, man. Michael Chandler, outside of his KO against Dan Hooker and in terms of punching power, what has he done in the UFC? You know what I'm saying? Like, sure, he's knocked down Charles, but that didn't get him to win, did it? He KO'd Dan Hooker in his debut, fair enough, but he front kicked Tony Ferguson. That's not punching power. And in his other fights, maybe if Michael Chandler had the technique, he could be higher, but I think Poirier, punch for punch, might have on par, if not more punching power than Michael Chandler. That might be cope, and that might be a casual take, but I'm sticking with it, and I don't care, boys. So Michael Chandler at the bottom of KO power tier. He can KO you, but his technique and his fight IQ are so low, he probably won't. Let's move on to the next one on this list. We got Israel Adesanya. I'll put Israel in good pop. I'm not going to put him in KO power. I know he KO'd Pereira, but let's look at Israel's career, man. He typically, doesn't have... I'm going to put him above... Let's see. I'm going to put him, Israel, right behind DDP. Israel doesn't have, crazy KO power. He KO'd Pereira, fair enough, but that's Pereira down at 185, weight drained. Yeah, I'm not trying to take away anything from the win, guys. He fair and square, he KO'd Pereira, fair enough. But outside of that, who is he KO'd in the UFC? He didn't KO Costa. He dropped him and then finished him on the ground. He didn't KO Brunson. He landed a shot. Brunson slumped over, and then the ref stepped in, you know? Izzy's only one-punch KO in the UFC, as far as I'm aware, is Alex Pereira. Outside of that, he does not have any one-punch KOs. Typically, he TKOs guys. He overwhelms them with good technique and TKOs them. So Israel Adesanya, I'd say, has good pop. I wouldn't say he has KO power. Like, if you fight Izzy on the feet, you typically, outside of Pereira, don't have to worry about KO power. So I'm going to say Izzy has good pop. Let's move on to the next one. Merab Dvalishvili, weenie punches. He has some of the worst technique on the feet I've ever seen. If he didn't have cardio, he'd be one of the worst fighters in the UFC. Either way, let me stop slandering Merab. He 100% has weenie punches. Merab does not have a single knockdown in the UFC, I don't think. Maybe against Marlon Moraes, but I don't even know if he knocked him down. But outside of that, man, the safest place to fight Merab is on the feet. He's not doing anything to you in the striking. Merab has 0 one-punch KO ability. He can't even, I don't think he has a single knockdown. Like I said, maybe against Marlon Moraes, but typically if you're fighting Merab Dvalishvili on the feet, I'm going to put him above Aljo, right under John Jones. Typically, if you're fighting Merab on the feet, you're pretty safe. You don't have to worry too much. So I'm going to say that Merab is in the weenie punches tier because he is himself a weenie. Either way, let's move on to another fighter, Joaquin Buckley. Buckley. I'm going to put Buckley at the bottom of KO power. Buckley has good power, but I feel like everything he throws is haymakers, and he's not KOing guys with one punch all fight. Wonder Boy took some shots off him before he got KO'd. I know he got KO'd against the fence. Well, Colby Covington was able to eat a lot of his shots, and the fight got stopped due to a cut. He was damaging Colby Covington, but it's not like he one-punch KO'd him, you know? Joaquin Buckley wears on a lot of guys. He throws very heavy haymakers, and if he hits you, it is dangerous power. That's why he's in the KO power tier list, because he can KO you, but if you have good head movement, you'll be able to eat some of his shots if you see him coming. He definitely doesn't have, like, I don't think he has one-punch KO power. Maybe, I don't know. Was the Wonder Boy a one-punch KO? He knocked him down. He kind of finished him on the ground. It's like a two-punch KO, but he does have KO power, so I will have him at the bottom of the KO power tier. Let's move on to another fighter that has what I would say is weenie punches. We're going to go with Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Speaking of him, I'm going to put him right above, I'll put him right above Merab. I think he has a knockdown against and John Jones. You know, I'm going to put Wonderboy right, I guess I'll put him right under Sean Strickland. Wonderboy has knocked down guys like Vicente Luque. I think he knocked down Kevin Holland, maybe. Maybe I'm a casual, but obviously with age, he's knocked down less guys. He's cracked a few guys like Tyron Woodley, and he's cracked other guys, but Wonderboy Thompson, typically you're going to have to worry about his kicking power more so than his punching power. Typically, if he's throwing punches on the feet, it's little pitter-pat punches. He's picking and prodding at you, looking for a head kick KO, or looking to just outstrike you in general. He's a karate master, but in terms of KO power, Wonderboy doesn't have much, man. He definitely does not have any KOs in the UFC by one punch. All of his KOs that he's gotten has been by head kicks. So, yeah, Wonderboy in the weenie punches tier because his punching power ain't all that, if anything at all. Let's move on to another fighter on this list. We got Rafael Fiziev. I'm going to put in the meh power tier. I think Fiziev's only, like, KO, so to speak, in the UFC was against an aging Rafael Dos Anjos in the 5th round, who had taken a lot of damage throughout that fight. But typically speaking, Rafael Fiziev, I'll put him like right under Sherry Bullet. Typically, this guy's like, I think he looks like he would have insane power, but he doesn't, you know? He hasn't one-punch KO'd anybody. Even whenever he knocked out RDA, he knocked him down, and then he had to, like, follow up on the ground. It wasn't a one-punch KO by any means. So, over his entire UFC career, I would say that Rafael Fiziev has meh power. Nothing crazy, nothing that you're going to be, like, stumbling all over the octagon. He had Justin Gaethje with some really clean shots in their fight, and Gaethje was just fine. And as we saw, Max Holloway slumped Gaethje one punch. So, can we really say that Fiziev has crazy power? No, you can't. Let's move on to another fighter in the God tier power, the last one. We're going to put Derek Lewis. Now, I'm going to put Derek Lewis, I'm going to put him at the top of God tier power. You know what? I'm doing it. Derek Lewis has the most knockouts in UFC history, I'm pretty sure. If this guy had technique, he'd be the most scary, dangerous striker ever at heavyweight. Maybe even on Ngannou's level. Who knows? Derek Lewis, if he lands a punch on your chin with power, you're like he lands clean, you're probably going to sleep. He slept guys like Curtis Blades. He slept guys like Alexander Volkov, like Travis Brown, a bunch of cab and taxi drivers throughout his career. So he's slept a bunch of guys, and there's a reason he has the most knockouts in UFC history at heavyweight. Across the whole board, Derek Lewis has the most knockouts. So, Mr. My Balls Was Hot's got to go in God tier power. Either way, let's move on to another fighter. We're going to go with Justin Gaethje. I'm putting Justin Gaethje in the good pop. I'm going to put Gaethje like under Usman, but above Dricus. I think Gaethje has good power. He KO'd, Edson Barboza back in the day. He TKO'd Donald Cerrone. He TKO'd Michael Johnson. But typically, Justin Gaethje is not known for one-punch KOs. He's typically known for just wearing on you, landing shots, and then eventually the volume and the amount of punishment he's landed on you is too much, and yeah, he gets you on the ground, TKOs you, and you're done. Justin Gaethje, the highlight, as they call him, fitting nickname. He definitely has good pop, but I wouldn't say he has KO power. I think his punching power is a little overrated. Remember whenever he KO'd Dustin Poirier, it was with a head kick. I think his only one-punch KO in the UFC was against Barboza. Yeah, James Vick. I forgot about James Vick. Do I put him in KO power just because he KO'd James Vick? Barboza was impressive, but he did eye poke him. And James Vick has never had a good chin. I'll put Justin Gaethje at the top of good pop. I'm not putting him in KO power, man. When's the last time Justin Gaethje got a KO that wasn't a head kick? You know, he got a KO against Dustin Poirier, but it was a head kick, not a punch. So I'll put Justin Gaethje in the good pop. Let's move on to another fighter. We're going to go with Marvin Vettori in the weenie punches. Yeah, Marvin Vettori just throws pitter-pat shots his entire fights. I don't know what he's doing on the feet, but for a middleweight who's pretty jacked and looks pretty saucy, he looks like a meathead that'd be able to, if you land on your chin, will be able to knock you down. But Marvin Vettori just has never shown anything impressive on the feet. Does he have a single TKO in the UFC? I'm not sure. Maybe he does. Maybe he has one TKO and one submission. Who he submitted, what, Carl Robeson? But outside of that, does he have any finishes? Maybe I'm a casual. I don't know. Marvin Vettori in the weenie punches. He's 100% throwing all the weenie punches. I'll put him like right above Aljo. I'll put him right before John Jones. Marvin Vettori looks the part, has the best chin in UFC history, but you already know he's throwing weenie punches. And I saved the best for last, guys. Everyone's favorite champion, Belal Muhammad. He absolutely is going in weenie punches. But you know what? I'm going to put some respect on his name and put him all the way above Corey Sandhagen. I'll put him third. Sean Strickland has gotten some TKOs against Abus Magomedov. He knocked down Adesanya, so he's going to be at the top of weenie punches. Stephen Thompson's TKO guys like who's he TKO'd? Guys like Johnny Hendricks. He's knocked down guys like Vicente Luque. TKO'd Kevin Holland by punishment. So I'm going to say Belal Muhammad is in the weenie punches tier third, just because he does have that TKO finish over Sean Brady. But let's not act like he didn't need to land a 52-punch combo on Sean Brady to get the ref to stop the fight. So, yeah, as we know, Belal Muhammad does have them hands like Canelo, but I would not say that his punching power is like, wow, dude, Belal Muhammad, dude, but let's be real. Belal Muhammad's a weenie. Everything about him is weenie outside of his physique and pace. No, I'm joking, dude. Respect to Belal. Obviously, I'm not a fan, but yeah, man, this is the most powerful and least powerful punchers in the UFC, guys. Let me know if I left off anybody. This is only current UFC fighters, but let me know if I left out any fighters that you would add to this list, and where would you put them? What would you change about this list? Is this a great ranking? Is this a terrible ranking? Let me know in the comments. Obviously, this could be opinion based. Some of this is obviously going to be concrete, but people are going to disagree. Let me know what you disagree or agree with in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. We just hit 3,000 subscribers, and I just want to say I appreciate you guys for that. Thank you so much. And yeah, you guys have a good one. Peace.